The world of high finance and luxury living was no stranger to scandals, but the story of Daniel Carmichael would become one of the most notorious in recent history. A self-made billionaire, Daniel was known for his keen business sense, his opulent lifestyle, and his relentless pursuit of success. At 52, he had it all: an empire that spanned continents, a lavish penthouse overlooking New York City, and a reputation as one of the most powerful men in the corporate world. But beneath the polished surface, there was a darker side that even his wealth couldn't hide. On July 15, 2023, the body of 19-year-old Claire Adams, a promising intern at Carmichael Industries, was discovered in Daniel's penthouse. The gruesome discovery sent shockwaves through the media and the public, exposing a sordid affair that had been carefully hidden behind the walls of corporate prestige. Claire's death was no accident, and as the investigation unfolded, it revealed a web of manipulation, deceit, and obsession that would leave a trail of destruction in its wake. Claire Adams was young, ambitious, and eager to make her mark in the world. She had landed a coveted internship at Carmichael Industries, a dream opportunity for any college student. But while Claire was intelligent and driven, she was also impressionable, drawn to the allure of power and luxury that surrounded Daniel Carmichael. The billionaire, with his charismatic charm and commanding presence, was quick to notice Claire's potential and her vulnerability. It started innocently enough. Daniel would invite Claire to high-profile meetings, introduce her to influential people, and shower her with praise. To an outsider, it looked like mentorship, but those closest to Daniel knew better. He had a reputation for getting too close to his interns, blurring the lines between professional and personal relationships. Claire, flattered by the attention, soon found herself entangled in a dangerous liaison. Their affair began in secret, with clandestine meetings in Daniel's office and late-night texts that quickly escalated from professional discussions to intimate exchanges. Daniel was married with 2 children, and Claire was aware of the risks. Yet, the thrill of sneaking around, combined with the perks of dating a billionaire, was too intoxicating for her to resist. But as the summer wore on, the excitement began to wear thin. Claire's friends noticed changes in her behavior. She became withdrawn, distracted, and increasingly anxious. She confided in her roommate that Daniel was becoming possessive, sending her messages at all hours and demanding to know her whereabouts. What had started as a glamorous affair was quickly turning into something sinister. The breaking point came on the evening of July 14, 2023. Witnesses later reported seeing Claire and Daniel arguing in the lobby of his penthouse building. Security footage captured a visibly upset Claire entering the elevator with Daniel, who appeared to be trying to calm her down. It would be the last time Claire was seen alive. The next morning, Daniel's housekeeper found Claire's lifeless body on the floor of the guest bedroom, her face pale and eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. There were no immediate signs of struggle, but an autopsy later revealed a mix of alcohol and sedatives in her system. The cause of death was ruled asphyxiation, but the circumstances remained suspicious. As news of the affair and Claire's death broke, the media frenzy was relentless. Daniel's carefully crafted public image began to crumble, and questions about what really happened that night loomed large. Detectives quickly turned their attention to Daniel, whose alibi was shaky at best. The investigation was only beginning, but the secrets hidden behind the billionaire's closed doors were about to be exposed. Detective Sarah Monroe, a seasoned investigator with the NYPD, was assigned to the high-profile case. Known for her sharp instincts and no-nonsense approach, Sarah was determined to get to the truth, no matter how deep she had to dig. From the moment she stepped into Daniel Carmichael's penthouse, she knew this was no ordinary crime scene. The pristine luxury of the apartment contrasted starkly with the tragic end of a young woman's life. Sarah's initial walkthrough revealed nothing overtly suspicious: no signs of forced entry, no visible injuries on Claire's body, and no clear evidence of foul play. But Sarah's experience told her that appearances could be deceiving, especially in cases involving powerful individuals. The autopsy report indicated asphyxiation, likely caused by a mix of alcohol and sedatives found in Claire's system. However, there were subtle bruises on her wrists and neck, suggesting that something more violent may have occurred. Detective Monroe's first order of business was to establish a timeline of the night Claire died. Interviews with the building's security staff revealed the heated argument between Claire and Daniel captured on camera. But when questioned, Daniel downplayed the incident, describing it as a minor disagreement over work-related issues. He claimed that Claire had left his apartment shortly after, stating he last saw her when she was a bit upset but fine. However, further scrutiny revealed gaps in Daniel's story. Phone records showed multiple calls and texts between him and Claire well into the early hours, contradicting rejecting his claim that their argument was brief and inconsequential. One particularly disturbing message sent from Daniel's phone read, "We need to talk now," sent just minutes before Claire was last seen alive. As Sarah delved deeper into Daniel's past, she discovered a pattern of troubling behavior. A former intern had filed a complaint against him 2 years prior, alleging inappropriate conduct. The case was quietly settled out of court, with a confidentiality agreement ensuring that no details would go public. It became clear that Daniel's charm masked a dangerous tendency to manipulate and control the young women he employed. The next major break in the investigation came when a witness, one of Daniel's closest associates, came forward anonymously. The source claimed to have seen Daniel and Claire in the guest bedroom that night, arguing intensely. The witness alleged that Daniel had been drinking heavily and was visibly angry, accusing Claire of wanting to expose their relationship. This account directly contradicted Daniel's earlier statements to the police. Detective Monroe knew she needed more concrete evidence to link Daniel to Claire's death. She ordered a forensic sweep of the guest bedroom where Claire was found, focusing on the bedding and surrounding areas for traces of struggle. The forensic team uncovered faint fingerprints on Claire's neck, consistent with the bruising noted in the autopsy. These prints were a match to Daniel, placing him at the scene during Claire's final moments. In a desperate attempt to deflect suspicion, Daniel's legal team issued a statement suggesting that Claire's death was a tragic accident. They argued that the combination of alcohol and medication led to an unfortunate misadventure and that Daniel had no direct involvement. But Monroe wasn't convinced. The evidence painted a different picture, one of escalating conflict, anger, and a struggle that ended in murder. As the media storm intensified, Daniel's reputation took a nosedive. Headlines screamed of the billionaire's scandalous affair, with every detail of the investigation splashed across front pages and social media. Daniel was no longer the untouchable business mogul. He was a prime suspect in a murder investigation that was unraveling faster than he could control. With each new piece of evidence, Detective Monroe moved closer to charging Daniel. But there was still one crucial piece missing: the motive. What had pushed Daniel to the brink? Monroe's instincts told her that the answer lay somewhere within the tangled mess of lies, deceit, and power plays that defined Daniel's world. With the pressure mounting, Detective Monroe knew it was time to confront Daniel Carmichael directly. The once untouchable billionaire now sat in an interrogation room, stripped of his power, facing the reality of his actions. Daniel's high-priced lawyer was present, carefully monitoring every question. But the best legal defense couldn't hide the cracks in Daniel's story. Sarah's approach was methodical. She started with the small inconsistencies, using them to chip away at Daniel's composure. "Why did your texts to Claire continue well into the night?" Sarah asked, her voice calm but firm. "You said she left upset, but the messages tell a different story. You were angry, she was scared." Daniel's expression tightened, his usual confidence replaced by a strained look. "We argued. She was being unreasonable. I told her to calm down, but she wouldn't listen. She stormed out," he insisted, his tone defensive. Sarah placed a series of photographs on the table, images of Claire's bruised wrists and neck, the faint fingerprints that matched Daniel's. "These don't lie, Daniel. This isn't just a lover's quarrel gone wrong. You were there when she died and you didn't call for help. Why?" Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his lawyer interjecting to remind Sarah that Daniel had no obligation to answer. But the tension in the room was palpable. The evidence was stacking up, and Daniel was running out of excuses. Sarah continued, pressing him on the motive. It wasn't just about a scandalous affair. It was about control, power, and fear of exposure. As the interrogation wore on, Daniel's facade began to crumble. He finally admitted that Claire had threatened to reveal their affair, tired of the secrecy and Daniel's constant manipulation. She wanted out, and she wanted to go public, but Daniel couldn't allow it. His entire empire was built on his reputation, and the scandal would ruin him. In a moment of desperation, their argument turned physical. Daniel claimed he never intended to kill Claire. He just wanted to silence her, to keep her from destroying everything he had worked for. Sarah knew this was the breakthrough she needed. Daniel's admission, though framed as an accident, was a clear acknowledgement of his actions. The billionaire who once controlled everything now found himself at the mercy of the justice system he had so often circumvented. With the confession in hand, Monroe and her team moved swiftly to finalize the case against him. Meanwhile, public opinion had already turned against Daniel. His face was plastered across every news outlet, and former employees began to speak out, revealing a pattern of inappropriate behavior and a toxic work environment. The board of Carmichael Industries held an emergency meeting, distancing themselves from their disgraced CEO and announcing his immediate suspension. Investors pulled out, and stock prices plummeted. plummeted. Daniel's empire was collapsing around him piece by piece. As the evidence was compiled, it painted a clear picture of a man who had everything but wanted more. A man whose greed, ego, and need for control led to the ultimate crime. The prosecution built a compelling case, charging Daniel with second-degree murder, arguing that his actions were deliberate, if not premeditated. They presented the narrative of a powerful man who thought he could buy his way out of anything, including the life of a young woman who had the misfortune of falling into his orbit. On the day of the arraignment, the courtroom was packed. Journalists and Claire's grieving family all gathered, watching as Daniel Carmichael, the billionaire who once stood at the top of the world, now faced the consequences of his darkest deeds. Daniel pleaded not guilty, maintaining that Claire's death was a tragic accident, but Detective Monroe and the prosecution were ready to prove otherwise. Throughout the pretrial hearings, the defense attempted to discredit the evidence, arguing that Claire's mental state was unstable and that she had a history of reckless behavior. But Sarah's meticulous investigation and the overwhelming forensic evidence left little room for doubt. The bruises, the fingerprints, the texts, all pointed to a man who couldn't bear to lose control, even if it meant taking a life. As the trial date approached, Daniel's defense team scrambled to salvage what was left of his public image. They painted him as a flawed but misunderstood man, a victim of his own success who made a terrible mistake. But the public wasn't buying it. The narrative of a billionaire abusing his power resonated too deeply, and the jury selection process hinted at a tough road ahead for Daniel. The story was no longer just about a scandalous affair. It was about the abuse of power, the exploitation of the vulnerable, and the lengths to which people will go to protect their secrets. The walls were closing in on Daniel Carmichael, and there was no amount of money or influence that could save him now. The trial of Daniel Carmichael began on October 10th, 2023, and it was nothing short of a media spectacle. Every day, the courtroom was filled with reporters, curious onlookers, and Claire Adams' grieving family, all waiting to see if justice would be served. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Mark Turner, presented a meticulously crafted case, laying out the evidence in excruciating detail. They painted Daniel as a manipulative predator who exploited his power over young women, culminating in the fatal encounter with Claire. Witnesses testified about Daniel's volatile temper, his history of inappropriate relationships, and the toxic work environment he fostered. Former interns, employees, and even Daniel's former business partners took the stand, revealing a pattern of behavior that showed a man who believed the rules did not apply to him. The prosecution's star witness was the anonymous associate who had seen Daniel and Claire arguing in the penthouse the night she died. Their testimony was damning, confirming the escalating confrontation and Daniel's erratic behavior. The defense, in a desperate attempt to salvage Daniel's reputation, argued that Claire's death was a tragic accident, fueled by her own reckless choices. They tried to shift the blame, suggesting that Claire's actions were impulsive and that Daniel had merely been caught in an unfortunate situation. But the jury and the public saw through the defense's narrative. The text messages, the physical evidence, and Daniel's own confession painted a picture that was impossible to ignore. Detective Sarah Monroe took the stand as well, her calm, authoritative presence reinforcing the thoroughness of the investigation. She described the timeline of events, the evidence collected, and the lies Daniel had told to cover up his involvement. Sarah's testimony was a crucial moment in the trial, directly linking Daniel's actions to Claire's death and dismantling the defense's claims of an accidental overdose. As the trial progressed, the prosecution's argument became clear. Daniel Carmichael was a man driven by ego, desperate to maintain control at all costs. When Claire threatened to expose him, he silenced her in the most permanent way possible. The jury watched as the prosecution laid out their closing arguments, reminding them of the bruises on Claire's body, the texts that revealed her fear, and the billionaire's callous disregard for the life he had taken. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for just 2 days before reaching a verdict. On November 5th, 2023, Daniel Carmichael was found guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read, the weight of the decision sinking in. Daniel showed little emotion as the judge sentenced him to 30 years in prison, without the possibility of parole for the first 20 years. For the first time, the man who had always been in control found himself powerless. Outside the courthouse, Claire's family expressed a bittersweet relief. Justice had been served, "She was just starting her life," Claire's mother tearfully told reporters. "No one deserves to die because of someone else's selfishness. We can only hope that her story will be a warning to others about the dangers of power and exploitation." In the weeks following the trial, Carmichael Industries filed for bankruptcy. The board ousted Daniel as CEO, and the company's assets were liquidated to cover legal fees and settlement claims from former employees. The scandal that had begun with a secret affair now ended with the complete downfall of a billionaire's empire. Daniel's name, once synonymous with success, was now forever linked to betrayal and murder. Detective Monroe, reflecting on the case, knew it was more than just another investigation. It was a stark reminder of how power can corrupt, how the allure of wealth and influence can lead to devastating choices. She hoped that, in some small way, bringing Daniel to justice would serve as a message. No one, not even the most powerful, is above the law. Claire Adams's death became a symbol of the dangers lurking beneath the surface of privilege and power. Her story was shared far and wide, a cautionary tale that sparked conversations about workplace exploitation, the responsibilities of those in power, and the need for accountability. The case of Daniel Carmichael was closed, but its impact would resonate for years to come.